Title: The Demon in the Closet. Every child has a fear of monsters hiding in their closet, but for me, that fear was not merely a product of my imagination. It was a haunting reality, a nightmare that played out night after night, leaving me paralyzed with terror. As a young child, I lived in a small house at the edge of town, nestled among the whispering trees. It was a quaint and peaceful place during the day, but as night fell, it transformed into something altogether different, a realm of shadows and unseen terrors. My room was a sanctuary during the daylight hours, filled with toys and laughter. But when darkness descended, it became a prison, trapping me in a world of fear and uncertainty. And at the center of it all was the closet, a looming, shadowy presence that seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. From the moment I could remember, I heard it, the scratching and clawing coming from within the depths of the closet. It was a sound that chilled me to the bone, sending shivers down my spine as I huddled beneath my blankets, praying for morning to come. At first, I tried to ignore it, to convince myself that it was merely the sound of the house settling or the wind rustling through the trees. But as the nights wore on, the scratching grew louder, more insistent, until it felt as though the very walls of my room were closing in around me. I knew I had to tell someone, to seek help before it was too late. But when I tried to confide in my parents, they dismissed my fears as nothing more than the wild imagination of a child. They assured me that there was nothing in the closet but clothes and toys, and that I had nothing to fear. But I knew the truth. There was something in there, something that wanted to drag me into the darkness and consume me whole. And so, night after night, I lay in bed, listening to the scratching and clawing, feeling the icy grip of fear tightening around my heart. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, I began to feel as though I was losing my mind. The scratching followed me wherever I went, echoing through the halls of the house like a relentless drumbeat. I tried to stay awake, to keep watch over the closet and confront whatever lurked within. But no matter how hard I tried, sleep always overtook me, pulling me into a nightmare realm where the scratching was louder, more insistent than ever before. And then, one fateful night it happened. The closet door creaked open, revealing the darkness within. I watched in horror as a shadowy figure emerged, its eyes gleaming with malice as it reached out towards me with clawed fingers. I screamed for help, for anyone to come to my rescue, but my cries fell on deaf ears. My parents were nowhere to be found, lost in the depths of their own dreams, while I faced the demon that lurked in the closet. With nowhere left to run, I closed my eyes and braced for the worst, expecting to feel the icy touch of death at any moment. But instead, I felt a warm embrace, a comforting presence that washed over me like a wave. And when I opened my eyes again, the demon was gone, banished back to the depths of the closet from whence it came. I lay there for what felt like an eternity, trembling with fear and disbelief, until the first light of dawn crept through the window, casting the shadows away. From that day forward, the scratching and clawing ceased, and the closet became nothing more than a storage space for clothes and toys once again. But the memory of that night, of the demon that lurked in the darkness, would stay with me for the rest of my days, a reminder of the thin line between reality and nightmare, and the power of belief to shape our perceptions of the world around us. Title: The Unseen Playmate, a Childhood Haunting. As a child, my days were filled with laughter and innocence, but as night fell, a sinister presence seemed to descend upon our house, casting shadows where there should have been light. It was during these dark hours that I first encountered my unseen playmate. I remember the feeling distinctly, a sensation of being watched, of unseen eyes boring into my very soul, even when I was alone in my room. At first, I brushed it off as my overactive imagination, the product of an overactive mind-seeking excitement in the quiet of the night. But as time went on, the feeling only intensified until it became an ever-present companion, lurking just beyond the edge of my consciousness. It wasn't long before the laughter started, a soft, mocking sound that echoed through the empty halls of our house. At first, I thought it was my parents, sharing a late-night joke or reminiscing about days gone by. But when I ventured out of my room to investigate, I found the house shrouded in silence, with no one in sight. I searched every room, every closet, every nook and cranny, but there was never anyone there. And yet, I could feel their presence, lingering in the air like a faint scent, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. I tried to tell my parents about my unseen playmate, about the laughter that seemed to follow me wherever I went, but they dismissed it as nothing more than the fanciful imaginings of a child, assuring me that there was nothing to fear in our house. But I knew better. I could sense that there was something in our house, something that wanted to play with me, something that would never let me go. As the nights wore on, the laughter grew louder, more insistent, until it felt as though it was echoing inside my own mind. It became a constant presence, a reminder that I was never truly alone, even when the house was silent and still. I tried to ignore it, to push it to the back of my mind and focus on the joys of childhood. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. And then one night, it happened. I woke to find myself surrounded by darkness, the laughter ringing in my ears like a twisted lullaby. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding in my chest, as I searched the room for any sign of my unseen playmate. And that's when I saw them. A shadowy figure standing in the corner of the room, their eyes gleaming with malice as they watched me, with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. I wanted to scream, to run, to escape the clutches of whatever malevolent force had taken up residence in our house. But I was frozen in place, unable to move as the figure drew closer, their laughter filling the room like a suffocating fog. And then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, they were gone, leaving me alone in the darkness, trembling with fear and uncertainty. From that day forward, the laughter ceased and the shadows retreated, leaving behind only the faintest echo of their presence. But the memory of my unseen playmate would stay with me for the rest of my days, a reminder of the thin line between reality and imagination, and the power of belief to shape our perceptions of the world around us. Title: The Whispering Doll, A Haunting from the Attic. My grandmother's house held an air of antiquity, filled with relics from generations past. Among the myriad of treasures, there was one item that captured my attention and ignited a primal fear within me: the porcelain doll that resided in the corner of the attic. It was a doll of a bygone era, its once vibrant colors now faded with time, its delicate features frozen in a perpetual expression of innocence. My mother had owned it as a child, but she had always been reticent to speak of it, dismissing any questions with a tight-lipped silence that only served to deepen the mystery surrounding the doll. As I grew older, I found myself drawn to the attic, compelled by an unseen force to uncover the secrets that lay hidden within its dusty confines. And it was there, amidst the cobwebs and forgotten relics, that I first heard the whispers. At first they were faint and barely discernible, like the distant murmur of voices carried on the wind. I tried to ignore them, to focus on the task at hand, but they grew louder and more insistent with each passing day, until they filled the attic with their haunting melody. I searched every nook and cranny, every forgotten corner, but the source of the whispers remained elusive, always just out of reach. And then, one fateful night, I saw it, the doll's eyes glowing with an otherworldly light as it moved across the room, its porcelain limbs creaking with each step. I tried to scream, to run, but my legs were frozen in place, rooted to the spot by an unseen force. The doll drew closer, its movements jerky and unnatural, until it stood before me, its empty gaze fixed upon mine. And then, with a suddenness that stole the breath from my lungs, the doll lunged forward, its icy fingers wrapping around my throat with a vice-like grip. I gasped for air, clawing at its porcelain skin in a desperate bid for survival, but it was no use. The doll's strength was inexorable, its grip unyielding. As darkness closed in around me, I heard the whispers once more, their voices mingling with the sound of my own screams as they echoed through the attic, a sinister symphony of malice and despair. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The doll released its hold on me, allowing me to slump to the floor in a heap of trembling limbs and shattered resolve. I fled the attic that night, never to return, but the memory of the whispering doll would haunt me for the rest of my days, a reminder of the darkness that lurks within even the most innocent of facades, and the horrors that can be unleashed when curiosity gives way to folly. Title: Reflections of Terror. The Haunted Mirror. In the dimly lit hallway of my childhood home, there hung a mirror that held more than just reflections of the physical world. Its surface, clouded and smudged with age, seemed to conceal a sinister secret, one that filled me with a sense of dread every time I passed by. I remember the first time I noticed it, the way the mirror seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly energy, beckoning me to gaze into its depths. And when I did, I saw something, or someone, staring back at me, their eyes filled with a malevolent gleam that sent shivers down my spine. At first, I tried to ignore the mirror, to avoid its unsettling gaze and pretend it didn't exist. But no matter how hard I tried, it seemed to call out to me, drawing me closer with each passing day. And then, one fateful night, I saw it, the figure in the mirror stepping out into the hallway, its shadowy form reaching out towards me with icy fingers that seemed to pierce the very fabric of reality. I tried to scream, to run, but the figure was already upon me, its grip tightening around my throat as it dragged me into its dark realm, where nightmares became reality. In that twisted realm, the laws of physics seemed to bend and warp, and I found myself trapped in a nightmarish landscape where every shadow held a hidden terror and every sound whispered of unspeakable horrors. I tried to fight back, to break free from the grasp of the figure that had ensnared me, but it was no use. Its grip was unyielding, its hold on me absolute. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure vanished, leaving me alone in the darkness, trembling with fear and uncertainty. I fled from the hallway, the memory of that night etched into my mind like a scar, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked within the mirror's depths. From that day forward, I avoided the mirror at all costs, but the memory of its haunting reflection would stay with me for the rest of my days, a chilling reminder of the thin line between reality and nightmare, and the dangers of delving too deeply into the unknown.